Hello, everyone. You're listening to the very first episode of the Table Talks podcast, brought to you by Emerge Magazine. This is where we go from covering daily sports news to uncovering the most intriguing Canadian stories within sports. I'm Claudia Romero. These are my co-hosts.
I'm Domenico Orlandi.
I'm Lucas Giordano.
And I'm Lucas Damiani.
All right, on to our Quickfire segment where we're bringing you our top sports news from this past week. Canadian star Alfonso Davies is advocating for a campaign to support education for refugees worldwide.
Yeah, the campaign is called Together for Learning, and if you don't know already, Alfonso Davies was a refugee himself coming out of Ghana, and he moved to Canada at the age of 5, and his life has been up since then. He made it into the Vancouver Whitecaps team at a very young age, 15, and he ended up showing his colors, and he was signed by Bayern for a record fee, and most recently he won a UEFA Champions League. He was the first Canadian player to do that, and now this past month or 5 months ago, he was named to the Team of the Year, which no Canadian has ever done, and nobody really expected, but Alfonso Davies is breaking barriers on the field, and now he's doing it off the field as well.
Yeah, his rise has been quite something to see. Like, just straight from his move to Bayern Munich, not everyone thought he'd be a first name on the team sheet every week. He's playing a new position at left back, and just in this past year, he's just risen like no other player we've ever seen in Canadian soccer. And it's just remarkable to see someone like that with so much talent come from Canada, succeeding with a team so good like Bayern Munich. So it's really great to see.
All right, let's talk about Galchenyuk's trade to the Leafs.
Yeah, so he was recently traded from the Ottawa Senators to the Toronto Maple Leafs. Another team for him after bouncing around. He was a former third overall pick in the 2012 NHL draft with the Montreal Canadiens. He had a good few first years. It looked like he was going to be a big player for them, but it just didn't work out. He was traded to the Arizona Coyotes in the Max Domi trade. And since then, he's kind of just been bouncing around. So it looks like the Leafs are trying to take a chance with him. Maybe he can find a spark with some of the talented guys on the team. They can maybe shift him through the 4 lines and see if he fits, but it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I feel like this is kind of a nothing trade for the Leafs, as mean as that sounds. He's been bouncing around the league a lot, and he never really lived up to the standard that he was supposed to live up to.
Yeah.
But, with such a weird season, there could be injuries, COVID. It's an odd year, so maybe he could find a place in the lineup. But as of right now, when they're riding hot, I don't really see it happening.
Yeah, and just to add on to everything, I think he was actually dealt to Carolina from Ottawa and then ended up getting released or something like that. But it just goes to show he's a journeyman, and nobody really expected that from a former third overall pick. I guess Brian Burke had it right when he said that Morgan Riley was the best pick in that draft. It's kind of showing now.
Yeah.
Now, Connor McDavid, he's reached 500 points in 369 games. He's matched that now Sidney Crosby.
Yeah, did we expect anything less? Connor McDavid's a star. He's been a star since being drafted first overall in 2015. Honestly, before that, when he was drafted to the Erie Otters, we knew this kid was a stud. Will he be better than Crosby? It'll be something to see for sure, but I think he has the potential, and definitely if he didn't have those injuries in his first rookie season, I think it's a whole different story, but it's just great to see him play. He's definitely a gem of the league. Coming from a Leafs fan, it's not nice seeing him score against us, but it's something to see when he does score. So good for Connor McDavid.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. If he wasn't injured, like you said, he'd be way past Crosby's mark. And I think what you said about him reaching Sidney Crosby, it's Edmonton. Like, it's kind of
well, you know what? They could make a run. We'll see. Maybe Draisaitl will help out.
I don't know. As good as he is, he's the best. He's got the most pure skill out of any hockey player I've seen, probably ever. Really, his speed it's unmatched. But I don't think he can do it in Edmonton.
Yeah, like you kind of touched on it. I think the big debate thing is going to be if he can win a Stanley Cup. Like if he doesn't win the Stanley Cups, I don't think anyone's going to say he's a better player all time than Sidney Crosby. Even if he does score more points than him in his career. I think it comes down to the Cubs, and I don't see that happening in Edmonton. They just don't have the team for it, and it looks like there's a lot of improvement they got to make with that team to even have a chance right now. So,
Moving on to the NBA, Lowry and Drummond trade rumors. What about that?
Yeah, so it's not really related, the two of them. I don't think anyone seriously believes that Drummond would ever be traded for Kyle Lowry. I think Lowry's value is way too high in that trade. But with Lowry's house for sale in Toronto, a bunch of people are freaking out. This has been verified by a ton of people. It probably means nothing. Realistically, you're not going to trade Kyle Lowry for Drummond. Maybe he moves somewhere, but besides that, the idea of getting Drummond, again, probably unlikely. Like, who are you going to give up for him? Who's going to cover that cap space? Are you going to trade Powell? I wouldn't trade Powell.
No, definitely not. Don't risk the future just for a now moment. And honestly, I don't even think the Raptors are good enough. I don't want to hear it from the Raps fans hearing this, but I don't think they're good enough to make a deep playoff run to even risk their future for Drummond. So
yeah,
not worth it in my opinion.
If you're going to trade Kyle Lowry, you're not going to trade him to the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are a pretty mediocre team, right? This guy's arguably the greatest Raptor of all time. You want to see him succeed and chase a championship, right? So you want to see him get traded to a place where he's going to have a good chance to do that. And you said, the value just doesn't match up. So I don't see that happening.
But I mean, it would suck to see him go either way, whether it's to the Cavs or just to another team. The stuff he did for Toronto as a city and as a basketball organization, the leader of our championship winning team.
Yeah.
Can't forget that. I think he'll be remembered as one of the greatest Raptors, if not the greatest Raptor of all time. So hopefully he stays.
Well, speaking of Lowry, he's the top 3 all-time in rebounds Raptor franchise history.
Yeah, this is a big deal. To think a point guard who's 6'1", 6'2", not even. That's probably giving him a couple. Could be the top 3 in rebounds for a whole franchise, even if it is a relatively new franchise compared to other ones. That's a big deal. I think he's right behind Chris Bosh and Jonas Valanciunas, if I'm not mistaken. And that puts him in top 3 in every major statistical category: points, rebounds, assists. It's a huge deal. I think he is safely the greatest Raptor of all time, in my opinion.
That's a bold take, safely.
I kind of agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I agree too, but there are arguments that can be made. Vince Carter's tenure in Toronto was definitely inspirational and up there, even DeRozan. But
I don't know. I think it's just a unique stat that really just showcases his unique playing style, showcases what kind of leader he is on the court.
Yeah,
he shows that you don't have to be scoring all the time to be the go-to guy. A rebound here, drawing fouls. That's kind of his game, and he showcases that. And this is a record that highlights his unique play style. So.
All right. And what about Draymond Green and his comments on the team's double standards?
So recently Draymond Green was speaking to the media. This kind of relates to Andre Drummond stuff. Basically, he's just kind of calling out franchises and their treatment of players when it comes to how they treat their players when they want to trade them versus when players want out. When players want out themselves, they're kind of looked at as a villain by the team, and they're labeled that way. Whereas when the team wants to trade them, they kind of just isolate them and phase them out of the team, and they don't treat them. Either way, they're being treated poorly. He kind of just called them out, and it's a thing that a lot of players have kind of backed them on. And
I think a prime example of it would be recently Harden, right? He was vilified. But one that hits kind of closer to home, I guess, could be how Vince Carter, when he left the Raptors, he was vilified like crazy. Everyone hated him here. As much as you love him now, everyone hated him. But to flip it around, when they moved to Rosen, it was kind of it's best for our team, not what's best for DeMar. Yeah. So I agree with Draymond. I don't think it's fair, but what can you do? It's a business.
I mean, the thing that bugs me most, and I think that's what bugs Draymond and everyone else, is at the end of the day, these guys are people, right? They have families, they have kids, they have loved ones in the cities that they play for, and without much notice, or not even that, but even when they do get traded, to be vilified and called horrible names in a social media age where you can get some guys, some loony birds who just, spread hate all over the internet about these guys just because they don't play for their team anymore. It sucks to see, and I think it definitely should change just because, you know, a lot of leagues and players and even fans advocate for mental health, right? So I'm sure taunting a player for being traded or being traded randomly isn't very good for someone's mental health.
Yeah, well, another little bit of controversy that there are some NBA players who are pretty unhappy with the All-Star game.
Yeah, this isn't a surprise. After LeBron says something like he doesn't want to play in a game, I think a lot of people are going to follow suit. I feel like he's just a trailblazer like that, and he's obviously got the biggest draw, and he's the biggest star in the NBA. And it's not even a question. And when he says he doesn't want to play in the game, it kind of stirs up some controversy because they shouldn't be playing in this game. As much as some people want to see it, I don't think they should be playing in it. Like, especially with, well, just because of the COVID pandemic. And I get there's like, you get a bit of money, an extra bit of money. Okay.
Yeah.
If you're an all-star, you're making enough money anyways. They want to see their family. They want to go home. Like,
yeah,
I think it's dumb.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's a stupid idea. I think the NBA works so hard to get playing again and to get all COVID protocols set. And, you know, I think they'd be throwing that away for a game that nobody really cares about. This doesn't affect the standings. It's nice to see in person because it's for the fans, but there's no fans anymore. So I don't think it's useful. I think the players could use the rest and the time to even just be with their families and just recuperate for a long season away. I think LeBron's totally right, and he definitely sets an example for the NBA, and just he's a leader, and they all follow him when he says something. So
All right, on to MLB. George Springer signing for the Jays. What about that?
Yeah, I mean, the Jays got their big fish. He was definitely the guy to get this offseason, and the Jays were front runners, and they got their man. I believe it was a $150 million contract, which is one of the biggest, if not, I believe, the biggest in Blue Jays history. A lot of fans are thinking they may have overpaid for this, but the team's up and coming. They got a lot of young players. I think this is a great signing no matter what. I think with the cap space they had, they definitely should have done this, and they did get it done. So they have their star man, and they're looking good. They're looking like a contending team in the AL East. I really like how they look. And speaking of how they're looking, their pitchers are reporting for spring training in Florida. So the season's right around the corner. I think George Springer brings this team to the next level. And I think he'll definitely be a good mentor for Vlad Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette, players like that, just about to enter the prime of their career.
Yeah, it shows the ambition of the team and what they have big goals for the team. They see the talent that they have, and they want to add to that by signing big name players like George Springer. He's going to be great for mentoring them, and it's going to be great to just see them grow and take their game to the next level. So it's great to see the team taking these next steps to try and get to the top, and it's going to be fun to see them play.
All right, moving on to the NFL. Big news coming out of Houston. J.J. Watts was released from the Texans after 10 years with the team.
All right, so yeah, J.J. Watt out of Houston. Another loss for Houston sports. I mean, it's a sad end to, 10 great years with the team. He was always one of their prime players, even though, like you said, they booed him on draft night. But he's given so much to that team, and I think it's time for a fresh start. That team is a dumpster fire. It's him now. When's Deshaun leaving? Probably soon.
Yeah.
He had to get out of there. It's time for him to move on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with players like that, it's sad to see them go. And usually when you see a player be on a team for that long, you kind of want to see them succeed. Like, similar thing I can relate to is like Henrik Lundqvist with the New York Rangers. It would have been nice to see him get a cup or something with them. But, sometimes this happens. It just doesn't work out. He's had a long career, so I think he deserves to just, if he's not feeling it with Houston anymore, he deserves to go to a new team and try and contend with them. It's just sad to see it come to an end, I guess.
Yeah, definitely sad, but I think seeing J.J. Watt lift up the Lombardi Trophy would definitely be a lot more fun to see, and I don't think that's happening with the Texans. So it's a good thing for him to leave.
All right, and Carson Wentz, he was recently traded from the Eagles to the Colts.
Yeah, so Carson Wentz, he's bad, man. He's been bad. He had such a bad year.
Yeah.
And the Eagles are starting their Jalen Hurts era, which is overdue. They shouldn't have even had Carson Wentz playing at all this last year, the way he was playing. And I don't know, like, it's a toss-up, right? Because he was almost MVP level. And I think it's good for the Eagles that they're moving on, starting their next chapter. But for the Colts, I mean, you never know what you're going to get with Carson Wentz. If he's back to his MVP level, that's a dangerous team, but I just don't see it.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where you see a team kind of just feel like they can maybe get the best out of him because it wasn't working out. You see that a lot in the major sports. They have a hole in the position. Philip Rivers just retired, and obviously, long term, he's going to maybe be hopefully what they think a long term solution after Andrew Luck's surprise retirement. So yeah, it'll just be interesting to see if he can reignite whatever bit of good play he had earlier in his career with the Colts in like a new environment. And we'll see if he can get the best out of himself.
All right, now we're on to our next segment called What's Lucas Tweeting About, where we go on Twitter, we read Lucas Damiani's tweets, and we wonder what the hell is going on through this man's mind. So, Lucas, you tweeted, "The 76ers will never win anything." Why did you tweet that?
It's true. They're not. They're never going to win. I mean, they had one chance, and it was against the Raptors, 2 years ago, and Kawhi hit the shot. Everyone knows what happened. They're not good enough. Even last night, they lost again to the Raptors. They're not a good enough team. Even at MVP Embiid level, they can't do it. They can't get it done. And I think there needs to be some moves in that franchise. I don't know what it's going to be. Maybe their role players aren't stepping up enough. I think Tobias Harris was a mistake for this team. I think Ben Simmons isn't living up to what people thought he would live up to. And I can't see them ever winning.
Yeah, it sucks to see, to be honest, because going into his rookie season, I was very high on Ben Simmons, but he just hasn't panned out as a NBA superstar. He's very ice level. He's not breaking through the ice here and showing the league that he's a top 20, top 30 player in the league. Like, he has to really improve his shot. I mean, that's no secret, and it's not been a secret since the day he stepped foot on an NBA court. And personally, I think until that changes, I don't know if he'll ever be an NBA superstar.
Yeah, and it even comes down to like the whole mentality and sort of culture that we heard about a lot in the media and other players like Jimmy Butler when he left, calling them soft and, they're not built to win. So it seems like a team that obviously has guys with individual talent. Joel Embiid's having an insane season. Ben Simmons is still a good player, but he's just not living up to the hype that we thought he'd be at this point in his career. So it definitely looks like it's just a team that's never going to reach what they aspired to be when they were tanking all those years, especially with the Brooklyn Nets now in the East. You got the Milwaukee Bucks, the Boston Celtics, all these good teams. It's going to be tough for them. And even if they did get through, they're not going to beat the Lakers. So
yeah, so maybe Lucas's tweet wasn't that crazy after all.
it's not crazy.
I don't think it was.
All right, and something else you tweeted was, "There has never been an athlete that has taken an aspect of a game and been as great at it as Stephen Curry at the three-point shot."
Yeah, again, it's true. Like, who has been so dominant at one aspect of a game as Steph is at shooting a three? He changed the game.
You could argue Connor McDavid for skating, but
yeah, but everyone knows how to skate. There's always going to be good skaters. It's what McDavid does with his skating.
Yeah.
There's a ton of fast skaters. Big deal. No one can do what this guy did. No one can change a sport the way Steph Curry changed the sport.
Do you think there's a player that can go at speeds that McDavid can at the same level?
I mean, maybe there's guys who could skate as fast, just not with the same control. There's no one who could shoot a ball like Steph. I don't think there ever will be again.
Yeah.
I think the big thing too with the Steph and his three-point shooting is how it just changed the game so much. Like obviously Connor McDavid is so fast, but the NHL as a whole has kind of moved into an era where everyone's fast. He's just the fastest, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like with his three-point shooting, it kind of changed the way every team plays. And we've never seen teams taking as many threes as they are now and that kind of stems from his play and seeing how dominant he was with the 3-point shot. Right.
Yeah, the three ball definitely became way more important once Steph started changing that aspect. So
I think it was already kind of trending that way, but he just kind of made it explode, right? And he's gonna have every 3-point record in the league by the time he retires. Not even in like the next 3 years. It's unbelievable, and no one will ever be able to be like that. Like you could say Vince Carter with dunking, maybe, or you could say like, I don't know.
Maybe Shaq's dominance down in the paint.
Yeah, but there were guys before Shaq. There was Wilt before Shaq.
Yeah.
All right, and lastly, you corrected a tweet that said at some point DeMar DeRozan is going to find himself on the list of the most underappreciated players in Spurs history, and you corrected that and said NBA history.
Yeah, again, that's something I really believe, that he's one of the most underrated players ever. I think ever since even when he was in Toronto, but ever since his departure from Toronto, he's been playing at such a high level. He's got a way more well-rounded game now. And even like, I think Steve Kerr just said recently, he should be a Hall of Famer. And I know the criteria to get in the Hall of Fame in the NBA isn't something crazy, but if he picks up at least one ring, I don't see why not.
Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely agree with that. That's not a crazy tweet because DeMar in Toronto was definitely a star player. And I think just because LeBron and the whole LeBronto era really put a damper on his career in terms of him becoming more than just an all-star, I think the way the whole trade happened with the Raptors and DeRozan really affected a lot of stuff. And not only that, but just even the destination. He landed at San Antonio where, you know, their big three was already gone. They don't really have many pieces that can, you know, attract a lot of attention other than Popovich. But, you know, I would definitely agree that DeMar is one of the, if not the most underrated basketball player in the NBA.
As you mentioned, the whole LeBronto thing, like that is a stain on his career. You know, when he was there with the Raptors, he was looked at as the guy, you know, the go-to guy. And the fact that he got swept by him, you know, right? But
I mean, and even not to cut you off, but even just seeing how Kawhi took the Raptors to a championship right after getting traded for DeMar.
Yeah.
You know, just it looks like he couldn't have done it, but he definitely was capable of doing something special.
Yeah. But I do agree with the fact that I think he's underappreciated. He could end up in the Hall of Fame. I think he has a game that's just not as appreciated in today's day because, as we mentioned before, with the 3-point shot being as prominent as it is, 3-point shooting isn't exactly his strong suit. You know, he's improved it. He's improved his overall game in general, but he has a game that isn't as appreciated. So I feel he doesn't get noticed as much, but he's always been a consistent scorer and his stats have gone up every year. So
yeah, one of the best mid-range shooters in the league. So
yeah.
On to our 5-minute major segment. This is where we're going to be debating on some pretty controversial topics. So let's start off with Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews. Who is the better out of the two right now?
Definitely Connor McDavid, and that's coming from a Toronto Maple Leafs fan and an Austin Matthews fanatic. I watch Connor McDavid, and I understand why my dad still talks about Gretzky to this day, even though he retired in 1999. When you see a talent like that, you're in such awe, and I can't believe the things he does. He scores, he passes, his skating. He's the best skater in the league. I think Nathan McKinnon's right there with him, but I think McDavid trumps him. But he just does everything so well at such a high speed. You can't beat McDavid, in my opinion.
I think you can. I'm going to disagree with you, and I'm going to say Matthews. And it's just he's tearing the league apart right now. He's the leader in everything. He's the leader in not points, but he's the leader in goals right now. What's he got? First player to have 18 goals in the first 18 games in the last 15 years. His team is way better. He has a chance to win a cup. McDavid has no chance to win a cup this year. Like, I'd give him a 0% chance. Edmonton is a horrible hockey team.
But are we talking about players or teams here? Because if we're talking players, I think McDavid has to take it. I think McDavid.
Well, I think you can't have one without the other. How are you going to have one without the other?
Yeah,
The league apart right now, and not only on the offensive end. He can win the Selkie without an issue. What is he? He's first in puck battle wins. He's second in stick checks. He's second in block passes and third in block shots.
Yeah, he's definitely a 200-foot player, and I would say that in that sense, I would say he is better than McDavid, but as an overall player, as an overall NHL star, I think they're both in the top 5. I think, but as an overall star, I don't think you could get better than McDavid right now.
I think they're both in the top 2, and I think Matthews is 1 right now. And just because I think the record splits it, right? Sorry to cut you off there, Lou, but I think the record has to push it more to Matthews' side. Every time you turn on the TVs, it's like he's scoring. You can't even, it's crazy.
I love seeing it as a Leaf fan, but I still have to stick with McDavid.
And I think it comes down to, like you touched on it in your points, like it comes down to the team success and value to individual success, right? I think McDavid is the most skilled player in the league, but the jump in Matthews' game, not only with his scoring, which was already insane, like he was already the best scorer in the league, and now he's scoring at an even better pace. But now you mentioned the defensive stuff he's doing, right? That he's like a front runner for the Selkie, right? Mm-hmm. So on top of that, and then probably he's going to have better team success because the Leafs are probably going to finish first in the North, which makes him an even higher candidate to win the Hart. So
yeah. Well, listen, I think I'll agree with you guys in saying that Matthews has trumped all of the arguments. You know, Pasternak is better than Matthews. I think he trumps that.
Yeah.
Draisaitl better than Matthews. I think he trumps that now too. I just think that Matthews has trumped so many of these things. I just exactly. I can't shake this feeling that he won't be able to trump this McDavid.
I think he has, though, Dom. I think he has.
I can't agree. I watch both religiously, and I think McDavid is I think McDavid's 1 and Matthews is 1A. I think Matthews is right there.
It's a lot easier to get secondary assists on a power play like McDavid than scoring every single game like Matthews.
Ooh. It's true.
Yeah. All right, we'll agree to disagree. I'll have to stick with
All right. Yeah, you guys are talking too much at this point. So let's talk about this. Do you guys think Canada is going to qualify for the 2022 FIFA World Cup?
100%. They are going to qualify for the 2022 FIFA World Cup. It's going to be their first World Cup since 1986.
Yeah.
And they haven't scored a goal in the World Cup. I think that changes in 2022. I think they have a original group of a bunch of teams that nobody really knows. They have a really easy group. I think once they win that group, they go into another group, which has another group of no-name teams. And then after that, they begin facing the really big CONCACAF teams, and eventually we'll have to face the likes of Mexico, USA, Jamaica, etc. I just think that outside of the States and maybe Mexico, Canada's right there. I think they take that third spot and they go to the World Cup. And I can't overlook Jonathan David being the star he is at Lille. He's popping off right now. Alfonso Davies is the best left back in the world. Do not at me, anyone, because he is. It's a fact. I think they have depth players, and now they even have a defender from Portugal. He just transferred from Portugal to Canada, and I think that really helps Canada grow into a better team, into a deeper team, which is what they didn't have the previous times. With the likes of Kyle Larin and just there's so many players, and I believe this Portuguese defender's name is Ricardo Ferreira. He currently plays at Farense as a central defender. I think that is exactly what the Canadian team needs, and I think that with all this, they're gonna make a run for the 2022 World Cup. I call it here.
I'm gonna have to disagree with you again. I don't think they're gonna do it. Like, you gotta be a little bit real. They're not gonna beat USA or Mexico. They're gonna have to beat them eventually. I get the groups before them are easy, like absurdly easy even. They gotta beat USA or Mexico, and I don't think they're gonna do it. I don't see it happening, and I'll let Lou be the tiebreaker, but I don't think it's gonna happen.
Yeah, Dom, I love the optimism. I love how confident you were when you were saying that, but I'm gonna have to agree with Lucas too. Like,
Pessimists.
Look, I'm not trying to be negative, man, but like they've just disappointed so many times. There's been so many other times we thought they were going to qualify and they're supposed to take the next step. And don't get me wrong, like I love Alfonso Davies, Jonathan David, they're great players. And I'm not disagreeing that like Alfonso Davies isn't the best left back in the world, but I think it takes more than that. And I think Mexico and USA have better, well-rounded teams. Plus, they got a longer journey. They got to go through other teams, and I know they're not the greatest, but it's still games they got to play.
Yeah.
So,
well, listen, we'll have to agree to disagree on this one too, because you're not going to change my mind.
Sure.
I think Canada makes the World Cup. I think I'm going to have to struggle between choosing between the Canadian team and the Italian team because, I'm Italian second, but I gotta root for my Canadian boys.
I think you're the only optimistic, passionate, proud Canadian here. So that's a wrap for that. Now, Canadian Athlete of the Week. So our pick of this week's episode is...
It's Jonathan David. Jonathan David has scored 5 goals in his last 7 games now for Los Lille. He started off slow for the French side, but he's definitely been picking it up. He really has showed his finishing touch. The Canadian striker was signed by Lille this past summer for a Canadian record fee of 30 million euros from Ghent of the Belgian First Division. Nobody really knows that. Everyone thinks that Alfonso Davies is the highest transfer in Canadian history, but Jonathan David trumps that. And I think he's our pick for Athlete of the Week. He's definitely been on fire, and I can't wait to see him continue to play.
Yeah, Lille's having a great season, and it's great to see him turn his season around. A lot of people kind of wrote him off, saying he was going to be a flop because of his start, and it's great to see him turn him around and prove these guys wrong. He just needed a bit of time to adjust to a new league, a better league. French league is one of the top 5 leagues in the world, so it's great to see him being a top contributor to them and being another Canadian that we can look to with a lot of pride, and hopefully he can guide them to the World Cup.
I think he's going to.
But, it's great to see. It's great for Canadian soccer.
All right, polls. So every week we're going to be posting a set of questions on our social media. So if you want to place your own vote, you can visit our Instagram, our Twitter. You can go to emergemagazine.com. Because this is our first episode, we're not going to be having any results this week, but our set of questions that you can place your votes in now are: is Connor McDavid better than Austin Matthews? Who's the better out of the two? Or do you think Canada will qualify for the 2022 FIFA World Cup? And we'll let you know the results next week. See who prefers what. And All right, that's it for our very first episode on the Table Talks podcast. Tune in next week. We'll be having episodes every single week. And don't forget to be placing your votes.